Anko is Orochimaru's greatest student by far. Now before you count this as rage bait content, I already know. She isn't as strong as Sasuke or Kabuto, barely relevant to the main plot, and becomes fat as fucking Boruto. That's what I used to think as well. However, when we look deeper at her character, she has the most complex relationship with Orochimaru as a student, with her mirroring Sasuke and Kabuto in a way most don't realize, as she has a surprisingly extensive jutsu kit given by Orochimaru. Anko wasn't just some fodder ninja in Konoha, she was Orochimaru's greatest student that Kishimoto didn't want you to realize. Cue my music.
This is what it's supposed to be. On the highway and I'm thinking that I love her.
One of the biggest thematic devices Kishimoto just sat on was the relationship between Anko and Orochimaru. Specifically, it would highlight a dynamic that is almost never shown in anime, the student versus the fallen master. At a young age, Anko had a high admiration for Orochimaru, as he was still working as a leaf ninja and was a part of the legendary Sannin. In her time as a ninja under Orochimaru, he took a special liking to Anko as a ninja, teaching her his signature jutsu techniques and becoming a mentor figure for Anko in her formative years. However, after the truth came out about Orochimaru becoming a traitor to the Hidden Leaf, and the third Hokage discovered Orochimaru's hidden illegal experiments, Anko was the first to receive the cursed seal of heaven, being the only one out of his 10 original test subjects to attain this curse mark. And it is the same seal Sasuke Uchiha obtained from Orochimaru during phase 2 of the Chunin exams. Orochimaru fled Konogakure and became a rogue and missing ninja. In this traumatic event, Anko took two things that would change her forever. One, the person she looked up to the most, someone she would have trusted with her life, viewed her as nothing more than another test subject. And two, Anko must have felt somewhat responsible for his descent since she was there firsthand, and it must be her who holds Orochimaru accountable for his crimes against the Leaf, since Anko was Orochimaru's student. Most of the time in anime, or just storytelling in general, we have the enemy dynamic where there's the master with his or her wealth of knowledge, and the student who once obeyed the master but has strayed from the master's principles. Think about Tai Lung and Master Shifu from the original Kung Fu Panda movie. Master Shifu loved and raised Tai Lung to become the Dragon Warrior. However, after Master Oogway denied Tai Lung from the Dragon Warrior title, believing that Master Shifu set him up for a false reality, Tai Lung sought vengeance, while Shifu, who was originally upset with Oogway's decision, honored his decision, which creates great thematic storytelling, especially when contrasting the fallen student with the student who held true to the master's principles, like Naruto versus Pain. And this is exactly what makes Anko and Orochimaru's relationship so widely different in the best way possible. Not only does it spark a whole new lane for hero and villain dynamics, it would have added a whole new layer to the whole Sasuke leaving the Hidden Leaf decision. Now obviously he left in order to seek enough power to eventually destroy his older brother Itachi Uchiha, viewing Orochimaru as the best vehicle to make sure that happens. However, if Anko was more at the center of the plot, she could have served one of the best insights as a mentor over Sasuke when dealing with Orochimaru, serving more as a cautionary tale for Sasuke and helping him understand the full weight of his decision. Also, looking into the anime only arc Land of the Sea, where Tsunade tasked Anko with heading to the Land of the Sea to recover possible whereabouts on Orochimaru, we get a nice flashback of the relationship between Orochimaru and Anko during his time as a leaf ninja, and also adding a nice detail that through Orochimaru's curse mark, Orochimaru altered Anko's memories to make her believe that he abandoned her, when actually it was Anko who refused to join his mission. This anime only arc added a lot more nuance to Orochimaru's character, also detailing the history between these two, which is very underrated and can lead to a plethora of important conversations. When we look at Anko herself, she very explicitly shows a great deal of guilt and has some abandonment issues tied to being Orochimaru's former student, so much that even the third Hokage had to let her know that Orochimaru's actions are not her fault. But this is what makes her motivation to catch Orochimaru all the more interesting, because catching Orochimaru wouldn't just be revenge or vendetta, it is Anko's moral compass and identity as a ninja tied to hunting down Orochimaru. However, this was handled horribly. Like during the early parts of the 4th Great Shinobi War, Anko hunts down Kabuto because word gets out that he has sided with Tobi in the war. This right here is where we could have gotten an in-depth climax and resolution to Anko's character, not just because Anko's entire character is centered around stopping Orochimaru, but detailing the contrast between the students of Orochimaru, Kabuto, Sasuke, then Anko could have been an insane pull and would have been S-tier storytelling by Kishimoto, which leads to my next point.
Kabuto!
Analyzing all of Orochimaru's most notable pupils collectively, that being Sasuke, Kabuto, and Anko, there are interesting parallels that occur between all of them and their motivations. From this viewpoint, it adds a whole different color to the fight between Sasuke and Edo Tensei Itachi versus Kabuto, with Anko being in the background, each representing the many sides of Orochimaru's manipulation across this series, and how each of their main motivations leads to their psychological descent. Sasuke, representing the bond of brotherhood, initially getting into Orochimaru's clutches in order to become stronger and fuels revenge towards Itachi Uchiha. Orochimaru appealing to Sasuke's sense of revenge is what made Sasuke disown all of his friends, only to later learn what happened during the night of Itachi's massacre, take action against all 5 Kages, and when arriving to fight Kabuto, just wanted answers from his brother Itachi. Kabuto and his loss of identity turned into obsession. As an orphan, Kabuto was recruited by Danzo and grew up as an Anbu spy working under the organization Root. In doing so, he obtained multiple identities and lost a sense of self, especially after fatally wounding his adoptive mother, Nono Yakushi, who was manipulated by Danzo into taking an opposing mission. When breathing her final breath, she asked Kabuto who he was. That crushed him. So when Orochimaru came into the picture, taking Kabuto in and making him useful, making Kabuto think that he just wants him as a person, Kabuto received a sense of identity from Orochimaru, which is why not only did he choose to work for Orochimaru and fuel his personal ambitions for immortality, but after Orochimaru's death, infused his cells with Orochimaru's, sought to literally become and surpass him in every way. That is why Kabuto approached and sided with Obito Uchiha, then Tobi, with the Edo Tensei army. When fighting Sasuke and Itachi, he wanted to surpass Orochimaru and prove his worth. Then we have Anko, rejection turning into more obligation. As we detailed before, for Anko to look up to Orochimaru as a young ninja, only to then be used by him as a stepping stone in his experiments, creates a sense of inferiority complex within herself. And through this lens, Anko chasing after Orochimaru becomes a plethora of things. The pain of rejection from her former sensei, which manifests as guilt like we mentioned before, to moral obligation to catch Orochimaru. But it isn't necessarily just about Orochimaru being caught, it must be by her hands and her hands alone. Which is why during the Chunin exams, Anko attempts to kamikaze herself with Orochimaru. Even though Anbu Black Ops were already called, she had to be the one to stop him. Also why Anko was the one to track Kabuto, the man who single-handedly provided all the Edo Tensei army to Madara. She wanted him. This is where her psychology adopts both Sasuke's bonding element and Kabuto's obsession. Anko had an initial healthy bond with Orochimaru, although in hindsight it was one-sided. Still, for you to trust and care for someone only for them to turn their backs on you in the most egregious way possible will create a different type of monster. And Anko's obsession with Orochimaru, feeling entitled to Kabuto's downfall, is exactly why she's in the cave with Kabuto, Itachi, and Sasuke, even though she has nowhere near the strength to handle any of them in battle. But Anko's jutsu kit isn't incompetent. Training under Orochimaru did give her some unexpectedly powerful jutsu techniques. Analyzing Anko's jutsu and fighting abilities, we can see she still retains a plethora of Orochimaru's original jutsu set, showing how she still holds onto his teachings even as enemies. With the first of these jutsus being the most signature technique performed by Orochimaru that Kabuto also possesses, Hidden Shadow Snake Hands. This is a technique that allows the user to summon snakes from their sleeves to attack their opponents. The snakes can bite, wrap around, or restrain opponents. Unlike a normal summoning jutsu, the snakes emerge instantly, making them difficult to react to, which works great in the way Anko uses this, activating the jutsu instantly at the start of battle. And how Anko spams this technique constantly throughout battle implies that this is a low chakra cost technique, meaning she can use it multiple times throughout battle with no effort. And when we expand this technique to its more potent version, its effectiveness increases tenfold. Multiple Hidden Shadow Snake Hands. Although this technique does not have any noticeable destructive power like a Rasen Shuriken, this technique works best against faster opponents trying to create distance and enemies vulnerable to binding attack. We saw this during the fight between her and Orochimaru in the anime, where she used her Hidden Shadow Snake Hands jutsu to catch Orochimaru and immobilize him, attempting to follow up with the next and most fatal move in her arsenal, Twin Snake's Mutual Death Technique, a jutsu that Orochimaru explicitly states as a technique that he taught her, in which Anko grabs her opponent's hand and performs the jutsu sign simultaneously. This activates a sealing ritual that is instantly fatal to both the target and the user. It's a kamikaze technique, making both Orochimaru and Anko aware of the severity of this technique and its brutality, and how willing Anko was to use it with ease instantly reveals the highly contentious relationship both of them endured from the start. Also, this jutsu somewhat resembles the Reaper Death Seal used by Hiruzen on Orochimaru, an attack that can cause death to both the user and the target, making Orochimaru the only shinobi in the series to face multiple death binding techniques, especially in part 1. However, going back to Anko, she is also seen summoning snakes as her summoning animal. As a staple of Orochimaru's teachings and snake-based jutsu techniques, and in Boruto, where she becomes fat as sadly, she is seen using snake clone jutsu, being a spin-off of regular clones. But one of the few techniques that exists outside of the snake repertoire is a fire-inspired jutsu, flame-style dragon flame jutsu. She uses this in the anime-only Land of the Sea arc, where she blows out a gust of fire from her mouth to engulf her opponents. Other aspects of her fighting abilities include being very skilled with projectiles like kunai and senbon. In her first appearance, she uses kunai knives to mark her territory, and during her fight with Orochimaru, she used senbon to close the distance between them. Against Kabuto, she made a remark about his lack of taijutsu skills, which implies that Anko is more developed in that area, with her most notable trademark being the Cursed Seal of Heaven she obtained from Orochimaru. Although Anko does not use it out of rejection towards Orochimaru, using Sasuke, who also possessed the mark and used it to his greatest abilities, can bring insight into how she would have experienced it. When activated, it can increase her chakra reserves and physical ability. There is also a stage 2 effect, like Sasuke's transformed appearance during part 1 and the early parts of Shippuden, but having this mark in general shows just how strong Orochimaru's influence was on Anko, holding on to wherever she sentenced him, being a semi-metaphor for the red string of fate like bond they would always retain.
私は残ってこのままアジトの探索をやる。 危険は承知。しかしこの情報を伝えねば、仲間たちはもっと危険になるんだぞ。
A major part that gets overlooked regarding Anko as a ninja is her superb specialty as a reconnaissance ninja. But what this especially reveals is her main motivation as a ninja and how it all ties back to Orochimaru, which we'll get into soon. Officially, her rank as a ninja is Special Jonin, which differs from the standard Jonin title we typically see. Special Jonin is a rank given to Jonin level ninja with a specialty their talents are best suited for. First being Anko's role to work as a proctor for the tuning exams, but mainly to do intensive research and investigation regarding the intricacies of the curse mark and to track down Orochimaru's organization and their whereabouts at all costs. With these being her objectives as a ninja, she won't stop at anything but catching Orochimaru, and her skills for that show in her work as a proctor. During the original tuning exams, Anko oversaw Phase 2 in the Forest of Death, where all 26 different ninja squads would be residing for 5 days, with half the squads holding either a Heaven or Earth Scroll, where they are tasked with obtaining both, meaning each team has to take one from someone else. Thinking deeper on this, each ninja squad, people who are taught at young ages to have a baseline of excellent hiding skills. Orochimaru has been on the run and has never been caught. To move with swiftness, something Orochimaru has demonstrated constantly in evading imminent danger. And when we look at all the applicants during the tuning exams, there was a huge degree of catching your opponent off guard and taking what's desired. The one thing Orochimaru did to Anko by giving her a curse mark, reconnaissance. This is what this phase of the exam tested, and it is the metaphor for Anko's life. When tracking down Orochimaru and Kabuto, Anko's curse mark allows her to sense when Orochimaru or Kabuto is within close range. Although it is more accurately Orochimaru having his chakra imbued within Anko, either way this can all help as well. And during the earliest parts of the war, we see Anko tracking down Kabuto specifically, solidifying her status as a special Jonin, but reinforcing her role in the series as the executioner for Orochimaru's crimes.
ただち、喜んでる場合じゃないわよ。私は第二試験官、みたらしあんこ。次来いよ、次！
Aside from her competence as a ninja, a bonus section, Anko is pretty entertaining to watch. Canonically, Anko has been referenced as having many similarities to Naruto as a person. She is boisterous, unfiltered, and can be an annoyance to those around her. Even Masashi Kishimoto, before nerfing her character entirely, has stated in an early interview that Anko was his favorite female character in Naruto, specifically for her complex relationship with Orochimaru. When she isn't on official shinobi business, she's known for dango being her favorite food, with her name Anko meaning sweet red bean paste used in desserts, and Mitarashi meaning the syrup poured on dango, making this a small but consistent nod to her character, similar to how Naruto references Narutomaki or fish cakes when translated that are put into ramen, which correlates to his love for the food. But going back to Anko, she doesn't have any on-screen time showing her experience during the Infinite Tsukiyomi sequence, but by seeing her and Boruto being more big-boned, we can logically assess that dango played a huge part in that dream. At the end of the day, Anko was a Kunoichi who had one of the most slept-on dynamics in anime that could have revolutionized modern storytelling. Her parallels to Sasuke and Kabuto show not just how different their past Orochimaru were, but how they all intertwined. As a shinobi, her jutsu and reconnaissance skills are surprisingly competent and reveal just how much influence Orochimaru played into her identity as a ninja. With a relation to Orochimaru, Anko was set up to be the thematic antithesis to Orochimaru in every way. From his values as a ninja, she sought to never betray the leaf. The complex history these two share on a deep level, being the only shinobi he trained to use his jutsu and reconnaissance skills for the betterment of the leaf. And for this reason alone, this is what makes Anko Mitarashi Orochimaru's greatest student. But that's what I think. If you think differently, the same, or want to add more, comment down below right after you leave a like and subscribe. Once again, my name is AOI-KUN, and this was my synopsis.